Another shit show. Another absolute shit show. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another post game here on Met Central. Game 75. I realized that I mistitled yesterday's post game show, so I do apologize if I misspoke in the intro there. But game 75 tonight, and the Mets get destroyed. This is horrible baseball. Absolutely horrible baseball being played. Inexcusable baseball, that being. There are no excuses here. I don't want to hear it. I don't, because this is just this is just pathetic. Watching this team on a nightly basis is painful right now. You have a bottom part of the order that doesn't hit. And they actually, you know what? They got the one RBI tonight, right? But nonetheless, they don't hit. The top guys aren't hitting right now. The pitching depth is going to shit. So where do we go from here? Because they're going into the biggest series thus far of the season, and it's June. It's June. It doesn't mean the division comes down to the series. I know. But this is just uninspiring, piss poor baseball being played by a team that has World Series aspirations and has the payroll they do. Completely uninspiring. You would think at least like one guy would be showing something throughout these games. At least one guy. Nope. No. And that's where the problem is. No one's showing me a pulse right now. They're going to get killed in Philly. They're just going to get killed in Philly. And does that mean that they're not going to win the division? No. I don't know if they're going to win the division. Again, it is June. Maybe they do win the division. But for right now, this team's playing dog shit baseball. And I have no faith they are going to do anything in Philly. With the way the Phillies are playing better and the fact that this team, in the past 5 games, by the way, they have 9 runs. And in 2 of those games, by the way, they had 4 runs. So that means you have 2 games where you got shut out in there. And then one of the games, which was tonight, you scored 1 run in there. And the other 2, you got 4 runs. Yippee. Do more. And then the pitching ran into the ground. Max Kranick goes on the IL today. It's just like, what's going on here? So then Nunez got called back up. Garza got sent down. Hageman got called up, which I thought he was going to be the spot starter tomorrow. That's not the case anymore. But also this too, right? Why is it that when the game was 3-1, before Brazaban imploded entirely, why is it that Hageman was up in the bullpen when they were only down by 2 runs? Is the manager, does the manager just know that they're not doing anything offensively to where it's pointless to even try to put in a higher leverage arm to get outs? I mean, also, it's hard to argue who goes in because this team is so thin on pitching that it does not matter. And I will go as far to say, I said yesterday that it's too early to look at external help. They have to for the bullpen. This is horrible. The bullpen, horrible. Brazaban has been ran into the ground, and it's clear as day with the way that he's pitching lately. He couldn't find the zone at all tonight. Reed Garrett was obviously unavailable. I guess he was. I mean, I don't know why he didn't pitch yesterday. Maybe Reed Garrett should have been in that spot. But just uh, I guess it's because Mendoza has no faith in this offense, though. Maybe it's just that. Maybe it's that simple, and I'm overthinking it. And you know what? As much as I don't like the mentality, I also can't blame him entirely because what has this offense shown over the past week or two, and even all season with runners in scoring position to get him to believe that they could come back even down by 2 runs? The hitting coaches need to go. I mean, we've talked about it all season. I don't know how David Stearns could look at this stretch of games and be content with keeping the hitting coach around. Why? Because you swept the Rockies and the Nationals? Is that why? Where you still left runners in scoring position too many times in that Washington series? That so the Rocky series is what's keeping their job? How about this, right? You can look at this from multiple angles as to I mean, I think anyone with a brain can tell you the hitting coaches need to go, but by some chance, maybe you don't think so, right? Let me convince you. Okay, look at the other side of the baseball diamond. Just look at the other side for a second. The Braves getting contributions from guys like Drake Baldwin. I mean, even he didn't tonight, but Alex Verdugo at points of series even was getting on base for them. And then Nick Allen. Look at the bottom of the order here. What contributions they're getting? Nothing. And you know what the further living proof is that came to my mind earlier when I saw, at least 20,000 tweets about Pete Crow Armstrong? You know what came to my mind? Remember how during the time we weren't obviously the trade wasn't great at the time, but we also were like, you know what? He's not the highest ranked prospect. So, Vientos is better, Alvarez is better, Beatty's better, Mauricio's better. And look who's doing the best right now. Why is it that PCA shoots up the rankings the second he leaves this organization? Because the hitting development in this one is complete and utter dog shit. And again, why is it that it's not being addressed by firing the hitting coaches? I don't know. I don't know how much longer it will take. Maybe if they get swept by the Phillies, maybe that will be the final straw. And you know what? Maybe that's what they need. Maybe that's what they need to actually get this team to have some sort of urgency going forward and some sort of semblance of this is unacceptable. Maybe that's what they need. Because right now, I see no urgency and I see no adjustments being made at the plate. They struck out 13 times tonight. They had as many hits tonight as Clay Holmes had walks, by the way. That was 6, so neither are good things. Is Clay Holmes could not find the zone. Could not find the zone at all. And then Brazabon too. Just couldn't find it. And once I saw that ball leave the bat from Olsen, base clearing double written all over it. And sure enough, the other part that really just sucks about this is you invited the Braves back into the mix. You invited them back in because you go in there and you even win 2 out of 3. They're I don't want to say they're dead in the water because there's still a 4-game set coming up against them, but you're really putting the pressure on them more. win one game, maybe even like I feel better. To get swept, you just invited them back into the mix. So great work. Great work all around. Just disgusting baseball. There are a lot of concerns I have right now. Just this pitching depth is it's bad right now. It is bad. Pitching depth is bad. The lineup, the lack of lineup depth is bad. I'm trying to find ways to put positive spins on this. And the only positive that I have in any way is that it's June and this roster is going to look different in a couple months. But like I said in yesterday's post-game show, and like I've been saying all season long, that doesn't change the fact that the guys that are here need to be better still because you're not overhauling the entire roster. And it goes for the top guys too. Because I'm not, Francisco Lindor, I've not seen enough production out of him over the last handful of games. Has not been enough of him. Juan Soto started to heat up. You're like, all right. And then over the past stretch here, not as hot. Pete Alonso, not a good last few games either. And sure, you could say, and I'm not going to disagree with you if you are going to say those guys will turn around. They'll produce at some point, sure. But even when they were producing, I want to remind everyone, even when they were producing, they still were not hitting with runners in scoring position. So I'm very annoyed, very upset, very concerned. I don't know what to make of this baseball team right now. I really do not know what to make of this baseball team. Because I'm trying to stay somewhat even keeled here. But to put in perspective how bad they are with runners in scoring position, the only team they are ahead of in batting average is the Chicago White Sox. That's it. List ends there. That's the only team worse than them in terms of batting average with runners in scoring position. You don't like batting average? All right, let's look at OPS. 22nd worst in the league. And the only teams in the NL they are ahead of are the Padres, which are they're surprisingly worse. The Rockies. And the Rockies, yeah, that's it. It's the only teams in the NL that are worse than them in terms of OPS. So I could sit here and tell you, yeah, the first 2 months playing good enough baseball to have the record that they have. Show that they are a good team. But like we've talked about on this show at nauseum, there is a difference between good and great, and I want to see this team get to a great level. They haven't shown it. And the runners in scoring position numbers just back up that entire argument there. And that's where it's hard for me to stay somewhat even keeled because you factor the fact that they're not hitting with runners in scoring position, especially with the fact that the pitching depth is so tested that guys are being ran into the ground and they're getting injured. And then on top of that, the guys that are here are clearly fatigued because they've been overworked so much. And the starting pitching starting to show cracks. Between all of that, I am finding it incredibly hard to sit here and be even keeled for the foreseeable future, at least. Because I'm not having fun sitting down on my couch at 7 o'clock watching this team play baseball because it is uncompetitive, uninspiring baseball. Because that's the other thing too. At least earlier in the season when they were losing games and it was close, you could look at it in that regard. But this uninspiring. This is the most concerning stretch without a doubt. And it goes beyond them losing six straight. It is also because they're not doing anything offensively, and the pitching has been significantly worse. What a fool I am for thinking they would take one game in this series. I thought one. Painful. They went from the third inning until the ninth when Marte got a hit only because Montero's throwing strikes, obviously, when they're up by 6 runs. It took from the third inning to the ninth for the Mets to get another hit in this game. Took that long. Same thing we've talked about all year. They just get these little rallies. They'll score. They'll have like one or two innings where they score runs, and then nope, laissez faire the rest of the other innings offensively. They just don't show up the rest of the innings. It's 2 innings at a time with this team on a good day, three. And now you go against Zach Wheeler tomorrow. Field day. Gonna have an absolute field day. And then Mick Abel pitching the second game. He's been good too. And then Luzardo, who's also been good. These next 3 games will tell me everything that I need to know going forward with this team. You win this series coming up, and we'll talk more about it on the podcast tomorrow. You win the series coming up, all of a sudden we forget about this. You win, or win or sweep, I should say, by the way. You win 1 out of 2. We're concerned, but at least you finally won a game, I guess. And if they get swept this series, then we might have to hit the panic button at that point. At that point, again, if after that, if they get swept in Philadelphia and there's no changes with the hitting coach, then or hitting coaches, because I forgot they have 2 hitting coaches. If there's no change in that department, then I don't know what they expect to be different down the stretch. I don't know how they expect to win games in October. And you know what the scary part is? Pretty it's not ludicrous to say they're going to get swept this upcoming series. It's not ludicrous at all when you look at the pitching matchups and the fact that I mean, I not that this team's hitting any pitching right now, but Wheeler, Abel, who's looked good, and then Luzardo. Pitching, the Mets pitching staff is going to have to be nails, and again, they look completely out of gas right now. Maybe they will. And I can't say that this is like too far fetched at this point because they just do not hit, nonetheless, against elite pitching. Chris Sale just pants them. Zach Wheeler's gonna have a field day. And yeah, this is it, Brian. This is exactly it. That this is why we talked about needing to address the hitting concerns earlier on the season because there was going to be a time where the pitching would come back down to earth, even if it's for a bit. Like the pitching and my concern in the long haul, not to an extent, yes, to an extent, no. But you need the hitting sometimes to pick up the slack. And when they are not, this is why it's as ugly as it is. And instead of being proactive on the problem, it feels like it's going to be a point where they're going to be reactive and wait until they get swept by Philadelphia, maybe. Start this 10-game stretch 0-3 is just absolutely disgusting. I wanted at least 6-4. Good luck. Good luck. There is no way they're going 6-4 during this stretch. There's no way anymore. And yeah, I mean, this is true too. The Astros, no excuses there. They're how come the Houston Astros, who are decimated with injuries and don't have their best hitter in the lineup right now, how come that team could be top 10 with runners in scoring position in terms of OPS? And let's see in batting average where they are too. And 11th in batting average. How come the Houston Astros, and then losing, by the way, in the offseason, one of the best hitters in the entire sport, having Christian Walker regress to a horrible level. Jose Altuve not playing up to an elite level. He's still playing good, above average. How come, though, that team is able to be towards the top with runners in scoring position and still look like a legit contender, while this team that has the payroll that it does with Lindor, Soto, Alonso, McNeil making the money he is too, and Marte making the money he is. And I know Marte is what he is, but you get the point. This payroll, the offense is making a lot of money to be grouped with the White Sox. But no, the Houston Astros decimated, and that team's towards the top with runners in scoring position. But the hitting coach could stay, right? Nothing to see here. Keep the hitting coach around. I've had it. It's just absolutely ridiculous. The Tampa Bay Rays, who are just a scrappy team, lower payroll than Juan Soto's annual salary, probably. Top 3 in both average and OPS with runners in scoring position. The Mets with the White Sox. Even the Marlins are 11th in OPS with runners in scoring position and 10th in batting average with runners in scoring position. The Marlins. The Marlins. The Mets. Say it with me. They're with the White Sox. It's absolutely ridiculous. And that too, I didn't even mention that they lost Bregman too. They find a and this is it. They find ways to do more with less, while the Mets, it's the opposite. I don't know what it is that the pitching side they figured out a bit, and I know that the pitching's in a funk right now, but the hitting side, no. They cannot get guys in the margins to play good enough baseball right now. I They actually have Luis Guillorme on their roster right now, by the way. We love Luis Guillorme, but come on. Come on. It's just ridiculous. It's embarrassing. That's what it is. It's embarrassing. These teams could lose their best hitters and still be at the top, but the Mets have their best hitters and only got better by adding one of the best hitters in the game. And somehow, some way, worse. I'm gonna wrap things up here though, before I go on a really insane rant. So I'll see you guys in the next one.